Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Newsac. We're gathered here today to lay rest the dearly departed calendar year of 2023. Lots happened. Let's get into it. 5th of January, Pope Benedict XVI was laid to rest. Really enjoyed streaming that. Thanks for tuning in. If you did, link in the description. Microwave my hard drive. Pretty funny. Please do that for me as well. Favourite new factoid is that they hit dead popes in the head 3 times with a special dead pope hammer. I do hope that's true because it's very, very funny. Next up, 19th of January, Jacinda Ardern resigned. Thank you for your service. She said, I no longer have enough in the tank to do the job justice. Apparently she was burned out. I understand that. A lot of people speculated that it was maybe because there was serious death threats against her and her family because of people not happy with the corona restrictions, etc., etc. FT weekend, who remembers? 1st of February, Chinese spy balloon spotted over US airspace. It floated all the way across America and then got shot down in the highest altitude air-to-air kill in recorded history. Yes, on the 4th of February, there it is. Boom, goodbye, thank you for your service. Damn, Montana's a shithole. Yes, it is apparently a shithole full of US Army bases which are armed with nuclear warhead rockets ready to go at a moment's notice. This one great. No China's spying me. OMG, look at these TikToks. This was brilliant. Meet the A's pilot, nicknamed the Black Tom Cruise, who destroyed the China balloon during Black History Month. Yes, big ups, mate. Apparently, I googled it, and the real Black Tom Cruise was a legendary weightlifter called Otis Perkins, who died in a car crash in 2021. So R.I.P. to him. Sir, a second balloon has been spotted. This also great meme format, very resilient, comes around again and again. We love to see it. Good night table, good night moon, good night Chinese spy balloon. Yes, good night. Thank you for your service. What if we kissed in the leaked vinyl chloride acid rain? This was on the 3rd of February. A Norfolk Southern train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, released a bunch of hazardous materials. Then had to set fire to one of the cars which contained vinyl chloride, which released hydrogen chloride and phosgene into the atmosphere. Clearly an absolute catastrophe. This happened because of lack of safety. Unions have been complaining for a long time that there wasn't enough safety checks and there wasn't enough people doing this work to make this not happen. And the train was over 3 kilometers long, so huge train to be rolling through the place with mad hazardous chemicals. After they burned it, the company who actually made the chemical said they thought it was stable and didn't have to be set on fire, but they communicated this, I think, to the train company, and they didn't communicate this to the fire service. So clearly just a failing on all levels. They're now cleaning it up, or they've taken a load of the soil out and they're going to start cleaning up the water, but presumably the chemicals have already leaked into the surrounding area and will cause problems for decades, maybe hundreds of years to come. There's Donald Trump. He went for a walk around East Palestine as well and then went to McDonald's and bought all the workers a bit of snacks. OpenAI, they released ChatGPT 4 on the 14th of March, and it came out in Time magazine that they used exploited Kenyan workers on less than $2 an hour to make it less toxic. And what they had to do was go through reams and reams of text in the data sets and basically flag content that was not appropriate. So we're talking horrific discussions of bestiality, of child abuse, of sexual violence, all sorts of things, and loads of them have said they are obviously mentally scarred. So next time you're asking ChatGPT 4 to suggest a recipe or some crap, whatever you're using it for, bear in mind that there are people behind it who are being really exploited to a horrific degree. Moving on, 19th of March, Swiss government bent UBS over a table and said, buy Credit Suisse or we're going to collapse the global financial economy. I'm not sure which result I wanted really. It might have been fun to have another 2008 style crash. This was just before that, on the 10th of March, Silicon Valley Bank was taken over by the feds after it announced a $2 billion loss on sales of securities. So there was a couple of moments during the year where we thought things were going to collapse, so it didn't happen. There's Sunak and Macron looking very happy, getting ready to brutalise more immigrants, doing what they do best. Financial Times, it was 26th of March in Israel. There was spontaneous judicial reform protests, so large-scale protest against Benjamin Netanyahu firing his defence minister who criticised the government's judicial overhaul plan, which is basically to give them far more power and free them from the oversight of the Supreme Court. This coming on the back of many years of Israeli political crisis from 2018 to 2022. There was 5 elections in 4 years, something like that. Now this has all been shelved after October 7th because they formed a national unity government or whatever, a war cabinet and stuff. Normal business is suspended and this has been forgotten about for now, but presumably will come back around the way. Maybe something to watch for in 2024. Next up, China and Brazil. This was on 29th of March, struck a deal to use their own currencies for trade instead of the dollar. So yet another chip in the armour of US hegemony. We'll be seeing more of that later on, and I guess also into the new year. Not going to stop. 420 came around and Elon, we have a problem. Yes, we do, mate, because you went and built the largest and most powerful rocket ever in human history and it crashed and blew up in the atmosphere after 4 minutes. We love to see it. Next up, another little financial blip that happened during the year. San Francisco-based First Republic Bank failed and was auctioned off by the feds for nearly $11 billion to JP Morgan Chase, second largest collapse in US history so far. Let's see what happens in the new year. FT weekend, this is the 6th of May, the day of the coronation, but we're not going to get that just yet. There's Blair Stamare looking way too happy, clearly putting it on, really not that happy to be out touching Gen Pop. Down here's what we're looking for. The WHO declares the COVID pandemic over. Yes, finally. R.I.P. Thank you for your service after 3 years and 20 million deaths. Slightly misleading there. They ended the declaration of COVID being a global health emergency, but they still refer to it as a pandemic. Yes, and next up, deep breath. The 6th of May saw the coronation of this lad, and her as well, two of the most unlikable people in Britain. Daily Express, Day of Destiny, there's the thing he gets to sit on, the big old chair with the stone of scone on the bottom, which they stole off Scotland back in the day. Daily Mail, Day of Destiny, very creepy picture/painting of Charles from 100 years ago. The Observer, there he is, not looking super happy. The Express, happy and glorious, there he is, looking very happy. Big shot of the fingers as well. Love to see it. Definitely one of the most unlikable people you could imagine. This is from this week, from yesterday, 22nd December. Daily Star, my Willie's got Diddy sausages. I do love the headlines in the Star. I kind of miss doing it just for these headlines. But it says here, King Chaz III reveals his son hasn't inherited his unfeasibly large fingers. Can you inherit swollen fingers as a result of gout and bad health from dining, whining and dining for 70 odd years of your life? I'm not sure you can inherit them. I think maybe just William watches what he eats a little bit better than his dad. Some great memes around this, just like there was around the time the Queen died. Don't forget that happened. That was last year. But still, she's still dead. This coronation dedicated to the brave Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan. Another great format, always comes around. I love to see it. This here, something very poetic about the king being driven over a load of potholes filled with wet sand because no one has the money to fix the roads. Apparently they came out later and said this was done to even out the road in places where there was small bumps, that they're not actually full potholes because of the horses, animal welfare. It's good to see them doing that. It's a funny meme, whatever. I was in London and the roads didn't seem that bad to me, but whatever. I see Andrew has arrived, RU14. I mean, that would probably be too old for Andrew, but how and ever. We'll go to the next bit. I've just temporarily lost my place, but don't worry, there's a lot of tabs open. That was another great meme that made me laugh. Hope it made you laugh. The coronation. Remind you of something? The messages are not even subliminal anymore. They're laughing at us. Yes, they are. I mean, they are laughing at us. Maybe not for that reason. This came up then in May as well. Belarus president claims country received nuclear weapons from Russia. Yes, they did. They signed an agreement on 25th of May. This story is from later on. But yeah, the weapons are there, ready to go whenever they need them. Let's see what happens. Russia has also pulled out of one of the nuclear treaties, so it's getting closer. Synthetic human embryo raises ethical issues. Yes, it does. The creation of the first ever synthetic embryo from stem cells without the need for sperm or egg cells. Apparently, though, it was stem cells taken from an embryo originally, so still quite worrying nonetheless. Daily Telegraph, this is from the 18th of June. The Titan submersible implosion. A bunch of people, tourists, including this guy, billionaire Hamish Harding, went down to have a look at the Titanic and didn't come back because there was a catastrophic implosion. Apparently they were travelling in basically what was just a tin can with a PlayStation controller or whatever, and it imploded. Apparently they had not bothered with certification, arguing that excessive safety protocols and regulations hindered innovation. Yes, they hinder innovation, but they save lives. So that's the trade-off. There's another one from Daily Mail. Air running out. This is before it came out that here all 5 people had died. R.I.P. Down the bottom, billionaires battle. This is a story that Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are going to fight in a cage match. People remember this? Cage match hasn't happened yet. Let's see. This here, one of the most successful Hollywood psyops in my memory, certainly. A ridiculous amount of memes about these two films, Barbie and Oppenheimer, Boppenheimer or Barbenheimer or whatever the hell they were calling it. Yeah, 2 of the highest grossing movies of all time. Fair play to whatever Hollywood people decided it was great. Just keep banging out the memes, get people to go see it. Unreal work. The most successful psyops are the psyops we deploy on ourselves. Yes, they are. Moving on, 21st December, Rupert Murdoch resigned finally at the age of 92, should have been forcibly retired a long time ago, handed down to his son and railed against elites. He said something mental here. He said elites have open contempt for those who are not members of the rarefied class. Most of the media is in cahoots with those elites, peddling political narratives rather than pursuing the truth. Yes, mate, you included. You own a vast majority of media in a lot of countries, really powerful outlets, and have a track record of meddling in politics. So, what can you do? Next up, the date we will not forget. This is October the 8th, but from October 7th, the event that will presumably define the year and what people will remember, the Hamas incursion into southern Israel, which then prompted the military response from the IOF. Hard to know about the figures at this stage. There was lately a story where they said it's like just over 1,100 deaths happened on that day. Obviously pales in insignificance the amount of deaths there's in the Gaza Strip since then. Roughly 700 civilians, among them 36 children. So, yeah. Hamas terrorists butcher civilians as stunned Israel suffers 9/11 moment. 9/11 seems to be a good analogy. There was foreknowledge of 9/11. Seems like there was foreknowledge of this. It came out recently in the last week, I think, that there was massive amount of insider trading. So clearly some people knew, some people profited from it, and some people are continuing to profit and will profit from the ongoing horrific apocalyptic onslaught in the Gaza Strip. This is from the same day after the incursion. Moving on here, this is October the 11th. Hamas cut the throats of babies in the massacre, so people might remember this. Big propaganda blitz, the absolute definition of propaganda blitz. When I first saw this was on all the papers. Immediately what I thought was the story when Iraq invaded Kuwait with the babies in the incubators. They came out and said, yeah, the army walked into hospitals and basically either murdered the babies in the incubators or caused them to die by cutting out the power, whatever it was. But turned out later it was total bullshit fabrication, and the woman who had told it was the daughter of a high up Kuwaiti official, something like that. So this here, a soldier had apparently said it to a journalist or something like that. That was the reason given, and then it was Chinese whispers, and everybody just reported they decapitated women and children. We saw dead babies. There definitely was some dead babies. I did not have time to look up the demographics of them all. It said 36 children on the story I read, which I guess means people under the age of 18. I'm not sure how it breaks down, so don't pull me up on this shit. Pure evil beheading of babies. Joe Biden even came out and said, I never thought I would see pictures of beheaded babies. You never thought you would, because you never did, Joe. 40 babies murdered by Hamas, literally on absolutely every single paper that day. Really unbelievable propaganda blitz. Daily Mail. This was a Holocaust, pure and simple. This from the 11th of October. That is extremely offensive to anyone who was killed in the Holocaust and any family members and people still alive who remember it or had relatives who died. 6 million people died in the Holocaust. 6 million. Like, don't get me wrong, every human death is a tragedy, but calling this a Holocaust is highly offensive. Really, like, that's just really bad journalism. I enjoyed this meme. A lot of memes, obviously, about this event. It being certainly the biggest mass media saturation event in my memory, because it's just everywhere. Social media, mainstream media, everyone's talking about it, etc. And it's been broadcast live to us every day via the internet. We are all being psychologically terrorized and scarred. I know I am. I am not the same person since before October. Like, really, honestly, mean that truthfully. This is the Metro from 23rd of October. Hamas blitzed. Were Hamas blitzed, or were the civilian population of Gaza blitzed in retaliation for what Hamas did? You decide. This is the Daily Express from Sunday, October 28th. There was a period in October where they were front page and lots of really dramatic stuff, you know, because it's dramatic and shocking things that sell papers. Big explosions, big smoke, real destruction, same as in the one we just looked at before. This picture, which is clearly quite horrific, just apartment blocks being totally blown out of it, being made totally unlivable. That has stopped now. It's actually, I noticed there was a post on Instagram, some people might have seen it, that it's fallen off a lot of the front pages. It's kind of, Ukraine is back on some of the front pages, but it's fallen off. It's in the background. Maybe this week a little bit changed with trying to move close to a UN resolution, but I think today they came out and there's a UN resolution to bring aid in, but no ceasefire, which is just, what, you're going to bring aid in as they're bombing the aid trucks and bombing the so-called safe areas that they want to go to? Absolute joke. It's a choose your own reality moment here in 2023. Just going to focus in on the information war briefly instead of getting sidetracked by other stuff. But 25th of October, this woman was released by Hamas and she shook the hand of the guy who dropped her off and said, Shalom, good luck, bless you. Definitely some people are absolutely losing it in the Israeli information office or whoever deals with this sort of thing. I think after this had happened, then there was an agreement that kind of any of the hostages released would just not talk to the media at all. And there was multiple instances of this, like people friendly waving to the guys dropping them off, like, hey, thanks for everything, good luck, and giving them a hug and stuff, follow me on Instagram, whatever. Gaza war, most dangerous ever for journalists. I think the number's now at 68. So really hampering the ability for this to be reported at all. Really a horrific war against journalists. Lots of them, it seems, were deliberately targeted. The word indiscriminate gets thrown around a lot, but I think deliberate is a better word. Coming back again to information war stuff, this image clearly betrays exactly what was happening. Land grab, capital investment, wanting to build houses on the graveyards of children by the beach in Gaza. There is a lot of memes around it. I've seen some horrific memes from right-wing accounts and stuff, but I've also seen some memes which describe the situation really well. Even though this just has Hebrew text on it, you can see what's happening and it shows up exactly what is happening for what it is, which I think is useful. The Onion, dying Gazans criticised for not using last words, condemn Hamas. That does sum it up very well as well. People are literally losing their job for liking tweets like this. Like, that is the level of censorship we are at in 2023. It's bananas. I'm done being an expert on the Ukraine war, now an expert on the Israel and Palestine war. Yes, aren't we all? I mean, we're just hopping from one crisis to the next. It was the Ukraine war, which is horrific and is still going on and is horrific. They want to mobilise another 500,000 people. We'll get to that later in the video. I'm getting sidetracked, but now we've jumped on to the Israel-Palestine war, and it's horrific, it's apocalyptic, it's totally crazy, and we're probably just going to hop on to the next one when it blows up and just keep hopping on. They'll just keep smouldering away in the background. That was also a good meme. Textbook fascism, be human, stand for Israel. That's another great meme format. Comes around time to time. See things for what they truly are. Would highly recommend you watch that movie. They Live, I think it's called. This one here as well really sums it up. US taxpayer dollars funding both sides. This guy, Javier Milei, 22nd of October, was elected Argentinian president, world's first ANCAP president, total mentor, wants to let things run riot. Free for all, free for everyone if you're a capitalist. There's actually protests now against him. I think in this week he released 300 laws that are going to deregulate the entire economy and just make it into a total shit show, and people are not happy with it, so they're out protesting. I enjoyed this meme though. The new president looks like Wolverine from X-Men if his mutation was being a paedophile. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Last story for the year, 23rd of November, the Dublin riots. This was after some children got stabbed. One of them was really seriously injured, a 5-year-old girl, and another woman was seriously injured who was in her 30s, and then a couple of other kids as well were released that day. But the stabbing happened. It was a man who was born in Algeria but was a naturalised Irish citizen, and basically a bunch of right-wing media outlets, particularly gript.ie as far as I remember, said this was a foreigner or a refugee, one or the other. Couldn't find out exactly what word they used, but then elements of the far right used this opportunity to mobilise a lot of youths, particularly in the inner city, which is a deprived area, lower social mobility, lack of jobs, lack of opportunities, people's living standards gone way down, inflation, cost of living, etc., etc. So there was a population of young people who were easily manipulated to go and make a riot happen and didn't care about property damage or, setting trams on fire, buses or cop cars or whatever. There was some cops injured. I'm not sure if there was any bystanders or civilians, let's say, injured, but really a horrific thing. People were terrified on the streets, and a bunch of people went looting shops after. And of course, the whole discussion in the media and by the government was law and order. We need to stop this happening. We need more cops. We need to give them pepper spray. We need to give them more powers. Instead of having a nuanced discussion around the reasons this would happen and how we could long-term plan for this not to happen again and make people feel like a proper part of society so they don't feel that they can go and just destroy the environment around them. And, I understand it. I understand those kids who are broke and have no opportunities, and you want to have a new pair of runners for Christmas. Go down, smash up a few shops, take a pair of runners, off you go. I don't condone it, much like the Hamas event on October 7th. I don't condone the killing of people. I don't condone what happened here, but I do understand it, and I think we all need to understand it. Very important to move on. Irish Daily Mirror, bloody horror, that was the same story. It was the largest deployment of guards, not sure if I said that already, 400 guards in riot gear, but really caught them on the hop. They weren't ready for it, and I think it caused the most amount of damage ever, over 20 million. It's still waiting on it to be added up, but something like that, and they've arrested a few people. So yeah, really horrific thing to happen, and I think useful for the far right in that they can say, look, there's loads of people who are not happy with this government and not happy with letting loads of foreigners in or whatever, and blaming the hate of foreigners, the classic far right playbook, instead of blaming it at the government for treating foreigners like shit and making them wait 10 years or more on their asylum applications to be processed and not letting them work in that time and shipping them off to unused hotels in far-flung corners of the country and not communicating properly with the communities there, and the communities then feeling aggrieved by this and getting then manipulated by the far right. So we don't have too much of a far right in Ireland, but I feel like it could be growing now before the next election, which is still quite a while away. But let's see, that's the main events. Let's go on to the next section. Yes, this section we're talking about coups. A lot of coups this year, attempted coups anyway. 8th of January, Bolsonaro mob stormed Congress, stormed the Capitol. January 6th moment. We love to see it. I mean, it's exciting. I don't think anyone got hurt. Then we had an attempted coup in Moldova, 13th of February. America came out and said they had intelligence and they gave it to Moldova and they helped to foil this coup. They're getting worried about this again. There's a lot of rumbling going on. Moldova wants to join the EU and NATO, and they've got Transnistria, this little strip of land right beside Moldova. Word in the street in Ukraine is they're very worried that the Russians are going to try and invade there with ground troops and take over basically. We're going to see what happens in 2024. Quite a big risk of that kicking off. Seems like Russia are fairly somehow stable in Ukraine, and they've, in some people's opinion, won the war. But Daily Star, Putin the Putin. This was in June, 23rd of June, that Yevgeny marched up to Moscow and said, I need more shells, Putin, to continue your war. 2 months later, he was dead, of course. R.I.P. Killed when his plane crashed, of course, presumably just an accident. There's also Sudan. This is from recently, 15th of April. A war kicked off between two rival factions in the government. There's been a lot of instability over the years, but UN Security Council now growing extremely worried. 7 million people have been displaced. Lots of crazy violence. We don't see this on our screens a lot because there's not so much internet connection there and not a lot of people have smartphones, but it is happening. Niger, 26th of July, President Bazoum was toppled in a coup d'etat, and now their French soldiers have been told to piss off home. So this is a trend in a lot of the coups. It's kind of about throwing off the oligarchical democracy that had sprung up and was basically dealing with the old colonial powers, which is kind of fair enough, right? Also, as an interesting aside, of the 27 coups in sub-Saharan Africa since 1990 that have taken place, 21 of them in former French colonies, so I do blame the French. 31st of July in Sierra Leone, there was an attempted coup, and then another one on the 26th of November, so just now they've lifted the curfew after the most recent one. Pretty crazy to have 2 in 1 year, but there you go. It is called the coup belt for a reason. There's Ali Bongo. He was thrown out of the Gabon. He basically announced he was going to be re-elected, and people said, nah, we're not having this. Military walked in. Successful coup d'etat. Bongo family have been ruling that country for 56 years. Next up, Burkina Faso. There have been 9 successful coup attempts in Burkina Faso since 1966. 9 successful ones. I didn't even look up many unsuccessful ones, presumably more. Now, we think of coups as being bad, being right-wing military coups. They're not always bad. Sometimes you have these ones, like our boy, revolutionary Marxist Thomas Isidore Noel Sankara, yes, took power in 1983, initiated a process of social development, stood against neocolonialism, and then he was, of course, deaded in 1987 by Blaise Compaoré, who's a real right-wing mentler, who introduced a policy of rectification, reversed all the nationalisations, overthrew all the leftist and third worldist policies, and rejoined the IMF and the World Bank, and ruled the country until 2014, quite a long time. I think he then got couped as well, makes sense, right? There was also an attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau. So, I mean, in a survey of over 30 African countries, over 50% of people said they would support a coup as compared to the liberal democracy, whatever, that they have, which tends towards oligarchy and resources being extracted and dealing with former colonial powers in ways that are not conducive to the normal working people getting along well in life. So I can understand that, but pretty crazy to think that over half of people in that certain subset of countries in Africa said, yeah, why not have a coup? Be better than this shit. We're looking at a map here of ongoing conflicts in the world. As you can see, roughly half the world, by looking at that map, is basically at war in one way or another. The darker the shading, the more the people have died. So things not in a good state. Wars are cropping up all the time. Like I said, we've hopped from the Ukraine war being the main thing to now what is happening in the Gaza Strip and in Palestine, which is totally horrific to watch. I think we are all scarred by this. It is a stain on humanity, absolutely. The people who are resisting calls for a ceasefire have names and addresses. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what more takes there is to give. It is really hard even to properly imagine what is happening now or what it is like to be a child in Gaza. And this is a really fucked up thing to say, but I am going to say it. The people, men, women, children, who were killed instantly in Gaza and in Palestine, they are the lucky ones. Just like in any conflict, if you're killed instantly, that is the lucky option. If you were just being bombarded from the sky relentlessly, like it's rain, like it's just falling everywhere, that is the lucky option. The people who are left behind, who are extremely badly injured, have maybe lost limbs, will never have the same life back, have lost their sight, lost the ability to walk, are traumatised, are horrifically traumatised, will never recover, are left without parents, are now in refugee camps susceptible to starvation, disease, exploitation. That is fucking horrific and horrible to imagine. I know that is a fucked up thing to say, right, that the dead ones are the lucky ones, but in my honest, humble, shitty opinion, whatever you want to say, that is true. And sadly it's true for a lot of other places around the world, which, like I said, we're not seeing. Like, well, we know they exist and it's happening, but we don't see them on our screens on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever social media X that you're on. Yeah, what is there to say? The situation there could be easily brought under control if the likes of America and fucking Germany and the fucking EU and a couple of other states would cop the fuck on and rein in Israel. But somehow I feel they're like a mad dog. It's like a mad dog that's been created by Israel, created by the US, that they literally cannot rein in, and is to do whatever the fuck it wants. The IRC, which is the International Relief Committee, they have a list every year, a watch list of 20 humanitarian crises which are getting worse or being exacerbated or need to be watched in 2024. And this year there are 222 million people requiring humanitarian assistance really acutely, which is I think a 30 to 40% increase maybe on 5 years ago. 3 million of those are in Palestine. So it's important to think about that. 222 million people total, 3 million in Palestine so far. It's really horrific what's happening. It is sadly just but one example of many. And things are probably going to get worse before they get better. There's the international community you always hear about. Yep, that seems about right. All the Anglo-speaking countries. Shitehawks. Really enjoyed this meme. Sums it up for me. Flags in bio is the order of the day. What World War III would mean for investors? Probably more money and profits, presumably, if you know what you're doing and you've got foreknowledge when it's kicking off, which a lot of people do, or you're selling bullets or guns or cans of beans or whatever. Next up, we're looking at deadliest events, meteorological events for climate in the year. Storm Daniel, top of the list. This had a really bad effect, rolled in over Greece, Turkey, Libya. Really bad effect on Greece, destroyed lots of agricultural land, which will possibly never recover. Loads of towns and villages, totally uninhabitable now. But had a worse effect on Libya, where a dam, all the water overflowed the dam, and over 4,000 people died when the water rushed down and made the river burst its banks with overflows of 50 metres, 160 feet on each side, which is just catastrophic to even think about what that looks like biblical level of floods. 30,000 residents displaced. The World Meteorological Organization came out and said that the casualties could have been prevented had they a functional weather service, and they had been attempting to do it but had been hampered by the prevailing security situation, which was of course caused by the 2011 invasion of Libya and the destabilising of the Gaddafi regime, which people would have you talk about, but the country was actually far better off under Gaddafi. So yet again, we see the intersection of climate crisis and political crisis caused by neocolonialism and neocapitalism, neoliberalism. These things coming together and causing absolute horrific consequences for normal people. At one stage, we were saying almost 1 million people in the country require assistance in Libya for various different reasons, and there's 300,000 children at risk of exposure to post-flood diseases, violence and exploitation. And they got completely cut off as well. Their internet cable, don't know if it got repaired, but it got cut off. The main internet cables, people just didn't have access. And in Libya, you have two separate governments at the moment. They came together and said, yeah, we're going to sort this out and we're going to fix this up and stuff. But that didn't happen, and they've now banned any researchers and international reporters from even going near there. So what can you do? Like I was saying, there is a lot of these things that are just hidden in plain sight. We know they're happening, but we're not getting them broadcast to our phones, and the people there are not well connected, so we can't actually see the reality on the ground like we can in Gaza and in Palestine. So yeah, other mentions there was some cyclones, cold snap in Afghanistan, ongoing heat wave in North America, lots of floods. I got a bit obsessed with floods earlier in the year. I had a little alert set up for it, just happening absolutely everywhere now, time to time. Huge dumps of rain coming down when they do come down, so pretty scary stuff. Presumably will get worse before it gets better. There was also earthquake in Morocco. It's a pretty big thing. There was wildfires in New York. I had a meme for that, I forgot to put it up. New York viewers will remember that. Earthquake in Turkey as well earlier in the year in February. 17th of November it was announced that the global average temperature temporarily exceeded 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average for the first time in recorded history. Watch out for more of this in 2024. Yes, we're doing the R.I.P list. Lots of people died this year. R.I.P to them. Boom, Gangster Boo, American rapper, accidental drug overdose. Harry Belafonte, legendary musician. R.I.P. Prince Constantine of Liechtenstein. No idea what he did apart from being a royal. R.I.P. Winston Churchill Ray. R.I.P. Loyalist paramilitary commander known as Winky, presumably committed lots of war crimes in the service of the British state, so R.I.P. I guess. Shane McGowan. My God, absolute legend. R.I.P. Alistair Dowling. Served in the cabinet, I guess, under Tony Blair, so presumably a war criminal by association. R.I.P. Matthew Perry. Died of ketamine and jacuzzi exposure, apparently. Sad way to go. R.I.P. Tony Bennett. You remember him? He did a duet with Lady Gaga one time. R.I.P. Paul Rubens. Guy who played Pee Wee Herman. R.I.P. Benjamin Zephaniah, legendary British writer, dub poet, actor, musician and professor of poetry and creative writing. Died at quite a young age. I think he might have been 50s or so. Yeah, quite a loss. R.I.P. Sinead O'Connor. R.I.P. Rarely I get teared up about things, but I got teared up about that one just because she was someone who really had strong beliefs, contributed a lot to culture, and also just the fact that it was so tragic that she died by suicide, and her son also died by suicide, I think 18 months previous, so that was clearly a factor in her own mental health struggles and stuff, so yeah. R.I.P. Silvio Berlusconi. Oh yes. I think the funniest thing about him dying was that he left behind an art collection which is basically worthless, and his family have no idea what to do with it, and it's just a pain in the hole. So, inheritance. Overrated sometimes. R.I.P. Mohammed Al Fayed. Father of Dodi Al Fayed, who of course died in the car crash with Princess Diana back in the day. The mother of Dodi, of his son, was Samira Khashoggi, who was the sister of Adnan Khashoggi, the legendary arms dealer who had the famous yacht that like Queen sang about, and the yacht was then sold to Trump and stuff. It was the biggest yacht at the time. very much a deep state actor, and Mohammed Al Fayed also had some quite deep state links. You know, he said that you still find the upper class of the elite here, referring to the UK, who rule this country behind the scenes. You do not think you live in a democracy because you still have a special type of government department like the intelligence service that are above the law. Yes, the deep state, of course. He's Egyptian, of course, who had links to Scotland. He bought a big estate there. And he funded a mad thing in 2008, a reprint of the 15th century chronicle, Scottish Chronicon it was called. And this basically describes how Scota, who was a daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh, fled her family, landed in Scotland and brought the Stone of Scone with her. And according to this chronicle, Scotland was named in her honour. The tale is disputed by modern historians, obviously, but Al Fayed later said that the Scots are originally Egyptians, and that's the truth. Another interesting thing about Muhammad was that he was accused by multiple women of sexual harassment and assault. Apparently, young women applying for employment at Harrods, which he owned, were often submitted to HIV tests and gynecological examinations, which is just mad. And then sometimes they were offered the chance to spend a weekend with him in Paris and stuff. He also had connections to George de Mohrenschildt in Haiti when he was there trying to control the shipping business. George de Mohrenschildt was basically the CIA handler for Lee Harvey Oswald and like knew way too much about the whole Lee Harvey Oswald connection. So worth looking into that. I'm going to try and brush up the JFK thing that I did and add a little bit into it, and hopefully I'll post that maybe later in the year next year. Mohammed Al Fayed basically accused the Duke of Edinburgh at the time, now King Charles, of killing his son. He said, "I don't care, let them sue me, I will go through everything, they killed my son." Because apparently at the time, there's a group within the House of Windsor Political Strategy Committee who were expecting a report from MI6 on the relationship between Diana and Dodi. So his claims, Mohammed claims, was that she was pregnant with Dodi's son and that the crash was done to stop that going ahead. But apparently there's a few different theories. Another theory was that a book that was published by Nicholas Davies said that MI5 were concerned that Diana was about to publicly support the Palestinian cause. Right? Okay. Paul Burrell, who's her butler, he also wrote a book, and that included a letter that Diana wrote expressing her fears that she might meet her end in a rigged car accident. So food for thought. Every human death is a tragedy, of course, and these people we've mentioned because they were notable and maybe their contributions to politics or to culture or whatever it was, politics, etc., music, and they're notable for that reason. But I think what's far more tragic than any of that is the countless deaths of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians caught up in conflicts all around the world, being punished for crimes that they did not fucking commit. That is an outrage and a horrific thing and a stain on humanity and speaks to humanity's worst instincts. So fuck war and fuck imperialism. And speaking of war and imperialism, you know who else died this year? This man, Henry fucking Kissinger. We got him, boys. We got him. Eventually. He was almost 100 and has sadly been replaced by loads of other warmongering cunts. But still, it's good to revel in the death of another person for a minute, but then you need to realise and pull yourself in and say, no, I should not celebrate the death of anyone, because that is not only dehumanising them, that is dehumanising yourself. And we see that a lot now, especially conflict in Gaza. A lot of outspoken Israeli figures and whatnot come out and say, yeah, I don't care, I like seeing dead babies on the telly, that makes me sleep well at night. That is not only dehumanising to the person being killed, and the people being tortured and being oppressed, but that is dehumanising themselves by saying that, right? I'm sure you all understand that as my viewers, but I was happy for a second when Henry Kissinger died. He did a lot of bad stuff, so, you know. Last thing to mention, Time Person of the Year, Taylor Swift. Oh yes, I'll put a link to my video in the description where I went through almost 100 years of this. Taylor is the 7th woman, I think, to get it on her own. So the other people were like Wallace Simpson, Queen Elizabeth, Corazon Aquino, Angela Merkel, Greta Thunberg, and now Taylor Swift. And then there was some other women who got it as a group, but I guess it stands out because she's not male and she's not a politician. Henry Kissinger, he got it way back in 1972 along with Nixon. But Taylor Swift is, yeah, clearly they wrote something mad at the time. They said, at a time when trust in traditional institutions is failing, we need Taylor Swift. She's galvanizing people and she's like registering people to vote and stuff. Just totally mad thing to say. The shortlist included Jerome Powell, King Charles, Putin, Barbie, Trump prosecutors, Sam Altman, Xi Jinping, and the Hollywood Strikers. Final mention for an award of the year was Dick of the Year was given to Suella Braverman. In post-production, I'm going to add in a clip of it here because it's very, very, very funny.
My name is Captain John Guy, and I'm beyond delighted to welcome our local MP and much missed former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, KC MP. It is testament to Suella's dedication as a local MP that she has taken the time to christen this small boat. With her huge engine, sleek exterior, but strong, firm and steady tiller, she is just perfect. And that's just Suella. Although it may just be a small boat, it will have a big impact on the local maritime community.
John, Fareham Fishing, it's a real honour to be here, to join your fantastic team, to pay tribute to all of you for your confidence in Fareham. Good luck to the Betty Warren. My honour to launch her.
Hey! You are also the last leg's Dick of the Year!
Congrats.
By popular vote. Brilliant, thank you so much. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what that is all about.
No.
It's been a big spoof. That's going to go viral now.
And now we've reached the end. The year has drawn to a close. It's over. Time to turn over a new leaf. There'll be a new number on the end of the date, and maybe things will be better. They can be better, but we have to fucking make it better. No one will do it for us. So stick around. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, consider donating to a charity of your choice, someone who you think does good work, and yeah, do that. Special thanks for the video to my friend Mark, who did the lights and the camera and stuck with me through all the tearing of hair and the missed recordings and all the messing up I did. Yeah, I'm in a bad state at the end of this, to be honest. Shout out also to Ellen, who loaned me out her tripod, and Culture Bureau for giving me the equipment, and myself for doing the video. Yeah, big up me. Have a good year ahead. Bye.
Happy New Year, all the best.